Hi, this is Dan again. Welcome to episode 3 of Autism and Aspergers, how to find your own superpower and use it for good, for your own good and for the good of all humanity. So, on episode 2, I started going over what's called the Aspie quiz, which is available free on the internet. And it compares neurotypical people to non neurotypical people. And so it will show where you're at on the quote unquote spectrum, but the AppSpy test is looking at strengths and challenges more as a pie. So I left you, I think it roughly, I'll give an update and just an overview. So they talk about talents. So that's what you naturally can be could focus in on. So there's AppSpy talents versus neurotypical talents. So what this test looks at is it looks at different questions that have been asked to people. Roughly 100 and I think 140, 130 questions, but well over 100. And they break it down into looking at the people that are neurotypical versus people that are non neurotypical and rating your, giving a number of an objective number measurement towards where you're landing on that question compared to neurotypical people. So I left off on page, I think, 6, which was AppSpy communication. So people that have Asperger's or autism or on the quote unquote spectrum of non neurotypical people. The group can, so AppSpy communication compared to neurotypical communication. So the AppSpy communication, this group contains broader autism cluster communication traits. Key traits in this group are related to atypical nonverbal communication. So, body language and being odd at body language. Just people with that are non neurotypical have problems with understanding nonverbal communication, i.e., body language. So, odd facial expressions, being accused of staring, using non unusual sounds in conversation, blinking or eye rolling, clenching fists, grinding teeth, thrusting tongue, and or blushing. Related traits are stimming, wringing hands, rubbing hands, twirling fingers, rocking, tapping eyes, pressing eyes, fiddling with things, pacing, flapping hands, peeling skin flakes. So there's a bunch of questions that are going to indicate whether any of this stuff is happening to the individual. So, what would be considered neurotypical communication? This group contains neurotypical communication traits. The, the key trait to the ability to interpret and show typical nonverbal communication, facial expressions, body language, courtship, and porosity. I'm not sure what that word means. The absence of these lead to secondary problems, being unaware how to behave, unaware of boundaries, being misunderstood, missing hidden agendas, being aware of others' intentions, misinterpreting figures of speech, idioms, and allegories, literal interpretation, not knowing when to apologize, saying inappropriate things, seemingly poor empathy. So that's what it comes down to is that if somebody who has problems with the not being non-neurotypical, um, they're not going to come off as having empathy just because they're not able to relate to the others, in which they could have lots of empathy, but they just don't know how to relate it to others. Um, so on page 7 of the report that I've done myself, actually twice, with relationships for Aspie people, non neurotypical people. The group contains broader autism cluster relationship and attachment traits. The main trait is a strong attachment formed over a longer period of time that can often last for a life, for life, even in the absence of further contact. Related to the attachment is being protective, learning routines, walking behind, and examining hair. Some people form multiple attachments. Uh, pol- pol- so I'm not sure what that word is. So while others form imaginary attachments in the absence of a suitable partner. Contact phase traits include unusual sexual preferences and being being more sexually attracted to strangers. Odd hair probably plays a role in recognition in the contact phase. So that's kind of interesting. That's things that I'm not necessarily aware about. Um, so, uh, neurotypical relationships. This group contains neurotypical relationship and attachment traits. Traits are related to the typical process of finding a partner, dating, courtship, and sexual intimacy. The intimacy traits define the intimate traits defines the norm in society and the aim at creating and maintaining attachments with sex. People that dislike this norm often often identify as asexual. So, Aspie social. So, how do people that are non neurotypical act in a social setting? The group contains broader autism cluster social traits. The traits are about putting oneself in the center and living in small stationary groups. It also includes having trouble with authority, arguing, and revenge. So the neurotypical social. This group contains neurotypical social traits. The traits are adaptations for socializing with strangers and superficial acquaintances, forming friendships and coalitions. Important traits are sharing and talking about feelings with strangers and superficial acquaintances as a way to socialize and exchange information. Hugging, waving, shaking hands are traits used in this interaction. So, as far as uh, the quiz is, that's as far as it goes. Since I've already discussed this is a part 2 of talking about the Aspie test, so I want to cut it off here. And then next episode, I'll go into some of the background, the studies that show that this uh, test is based on scientific evidence and not just some willy nilly test that's been done by somebody who thinks that these questions are good to ask and so I'm going to be proving the validity of this test, and I will put a link to the Aspie test because that's a lot of what this podcast is going to be about. So have a good day and see you next time. Thank you.